I don't know how to make this video without making people in the crypto space a little bit mad, but at least hear me out. At the time of me recording this, Bitcoin just dipped below 85,000 and has seen a 5% price drop in just 24 hours. And at the same time this is happening, MicroStrategy has $10 billion more in Bitcoin holdings than they do in actual market cap. But somehow, Michael Saylor is still saying they're going to buy the dip. Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or go stout. The crypto space has really turned into this weird sector of the internet where any skepticism is vilified, and you'll probably met with the response that you have no idea what Bitcoin truly is and you're just an old head that doesn't get the new money. Or my favorite response,
oh, you're not familiar with the 4-year cycle?
And this is usually said by people who have not held Bitcoin for more than a year or have like $300 invested into it. I've held Bitcoin in past cycles and I've seen it do crazy things. So this price volatility is nothing new to me, but the mindset behind it has never really made sense. And when people call it the new age gold, I don't understand it because, hey, we have gold still available to buy. But that hasn't stopped me from learning more about it and trying to be less skeptical by seeing some information that may change my mind. But every time I go looking for information, I see things like this, where someone has identified the Saddam Hussein pattern in the Bitcoin chart. But seriously, it's getting harder to take Bitcoin seriously because it requires a lot of blind faith. When the price is going down, everybody's telling you to buy the dip, but once the price stabilizes for 30 minutes, people are saying it's only up from here, calling new lows at every stage of the crash. I remember at 126, 110 was the official new low and it was only up from here. And then in early November, I remember when 100K was the new low and it was only up from there. Now we're sitting at 85,000 and I was quickly able to find someone saying this is the new low. I truly think that this type of talk is what stopped the bull cycle from really peaking. Aside from the lunacy found in the discourse, I also just don't like how centralized it's becoming. I don't like the fact that major institutions are adding it to their books. I don't like the amount that these major institutions are buying, and I can't wrap my head around the idea of a Bitcoin ETF or everything that MicroStrategy is doing with their dividends. Why would you invest into a company that buys Bitcoin instead of just buying Bitcoin yourself? With MicroStrategy's stock price plummeting, the responses have been hilarious. My favorite being, fastest way to become a millionaire, start as a billionaire and invest everything in MicroStrategy. And that company that you have a share of that owns Bitcoin is actively diluting their stock so they can have money to buy more Bitcoin. You are literally the loser. If you were buying MicroStrategy for their strategy of just buying Bitcoin and never selling, you don't actually own Bitcoin. You just own a piece of a company that owns Bitcoin. And if you're one of the people who are bullish on ETFs for the crypto market, you don't own that coin either. You literally just own a receipt. The bank owns that coin. And what happens when these big players like JP Morgan, BlackRock, Fidelity scoop up all the Bitcoin with your money? Let's just say like even 20 to 40% of the market is controlled by them. Then we are essentially creating another Federal Reserve. And we're going to see what we're seeing today happen at a larger scale. Since the start of this major dip in October, all these large market manipulators have gone on TV and said everybody should be buying the dip. Retail should not be scared right now and they should be buying this price, while also at the same time selling off large amounts and not disclosing it to anybody. If you haven't been keeping up with the news like a hawk, you have probably missed the billions of dollars of liquidations that have been happening. This was supposed to disrupt the banking system. This was supposed to make them fearful about what was coming. All they did was just adopt it and take it over. This seems like it backfired, and Satoshi never wanted this to happen. I will never claim to be the most knowledgeable person on this crypto, but he wanted this to be a new way of doing transactions. But with the way Bitcoin is heading, everybody's telling you to never sell. Just buy and hold forever. It stops being peer-to-peer, becomes less self-sovereign, and more prone to some form of censorship. And at the rate that it's going, it's literally just the number goes up speculation table, just like everything else Wall Street puts its hands into. And this all goes against the original mission of Bitcoin. You know, a peer-to-peer version of electric cash. When you say this to people, they think that you're lying, but it is literally in the white papers. I think it was the title of the white paper. Now that I've said the number part that makes me skeptical of Bitcoin, I just want to say the complete conspiracy I have in my head of what Bitcoin is. While I don't think Bitcoin started off as something evil, I think it is becoming something evil. In the release of the Epstein files, we saw that Jeffrey Epstein was very well connected to the Bitcoin team and the funding of the project, helping fund the project as way back as 2015. Here's where it gets weird, and maybe I'm connecting numbers that I shouldn't. In June of 2008, Jeffrey Epstein Epstein gets convicted of charges. I'll put them up on the screen now. And in October of that same year, an entity named Satoshi Nakamoto releases the white paper to a cryptology emailing list. That is probably a coincidence. Honestly, I just saw those dates and I'm like, that's kind of odd. If a person as powerful as Jeffrey Epstein gets caught on these charges, it makes it hard for him to bank normally. So I kind of see the incentive of having to create a Bitcoin. You have to find a way to dodge the global banking system that currently exists. How do you do that other than creating your own currency? I don't think people know how large these people think. Not to mention, the discourse of Bitcoin didn't really start picking up until Reddit picked it up, and it quickly got traction on there. The first post ever made about Bitcoin on Reddit was May 2009. Why does Reddit matter? Well, if you know about the connections between Ghislaine Maxwell and Reddit and how she kind of used that as a soft launch platform for the things that she was actually going to do, the account that is alleged to be her had the fourth highest amount of karma on the entire site at one point. It was also in charge of major subreddits like World News. Okay, I know that sounds far-fetched. Epstein pleads guilty in 2008. Bitcoin is created in 2008. Reddit posts about it in 2009. And in 2015, Jeffrey Epstein and one of the founders of Tether are found talking to each other with Larry Summers in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan home. And he was meeting with one of the co-founders, Brooke Pierce. Funny enough, he was in Mighty Ducks 1 and 2. He was a big-time actor, did a lot of stuff in gaming, went into crypto, and even ran for president in 2020. He's had a pretty crazy life. But in 2015, him, Epstein, and Larry Summers, yes, the same Larry Summers that was asking Epstein for dating advice at like 50 years old, the same one that was the Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, were having a meeting. I know you're probably thinking to yourself, this was 2015. Bitcoin was started in 2008. What about that gap in time? Well, I've thought about that. We've gotten multiple releases of Epstein files throughout the years. This is not the first batch, but this is the first batch that mentions Bitcoin and Epstein. Before that, nobody even put those two people together. And while Brooke Pierce and Jeffrey Epstein met in 2014 to discuss Bitcoin, that was not their first meeting ever. They met in 2011 at the islands for a scientific conference. And there may have been more times. In 2019, a spokesperson for Pierce had to come out and say all the meetings that we had were purely about cryptocurrency. So we have Brooke Pierce, the founder of Tether, being on the island in 2011, which was less than 3 years after Bitcoin's creation and was 1 year before Bitcoin crashed in 2012. But it's weird how close they are together. If you're looking for me to provide more facts as I continue on with my conspiracy theory, well, that's where they stop. That's where all the hard facts stop. I will give you that warning now. This is pure speculation. So what we can take away from the 2015 meeting between Larry Summers, Epstein, and Pierce, Larry Summers said something that kind of caught my eye. He was confident in Bitcoin at this time. Even though he wasn't willing to put his name by it, he saw where he could go and was pretty bullish on the future of Bitcoin. He just had to find a way to explain the massive surges and crashes that happen periodically. While we don't know the answer that they came to tackle this problem, I kind of think I know what they did. At this point, we know about the Mossad ties that Jeffrey Epstein has and how well connected he is to influence campaigns. He was one of the most important men in these influential circles, as we're coming to know. So stick with me here. We do know that Bitcoin was gaining traction in 2012 with more of the tech crowd, but it didn't really start spiking in coverage until 2016, less than a year after they met. And since 2016, Bitcoin has really not looked back. But then Epstein pops up again talking about Bitcoin, this time in February of 2018, where he had some emails with Bannon asking about what was going to happen regarding crypto tax, going as far to even tell them what they should do in terms of regulating crypto. And in 2019, a source that's familiar with Epstein's businesses said that Jeffrey Epstein worked for the US Treasury Department on cryptocurrency and anti-hacking efforts, which I think go back to the Mossad ties. Why does it matter if he's involved? Well, Bitcoin is decentralized. While that's a good thing if it's used in the right hands, it can be a very bad thing if it's corrupted by a group of people. And this was always a major concern of Bitcoin, its security flaws, and the fact that if there's wide enough consensus, a decentralized platform can become centralized. And with all the big financiers jumping into Bitcoin now, that's exactly what we see happening. When I see JP Morgan buying into Bitcoin, I don't think this is a great thing for Bitcoin. I think to myself, the bank that worked with Epstein to conceal his crimes is now giving Bitcoin the thumbs up when really no value has been proven. I remember at one point they were pushing Bitcoin ATMs very heavily, and that idea has died, and now they have moved over into a sort of fool's gold, and it is essentially gambling. 3 mining pools control 60% of Bitcoin, and now it is just some very uncontrollable vehicle for growth. With all my speculation laid out, do I think that the growth is going to stop here? I think it's reached its too big to fail position. We might see the bear market hold on for a little bit longer, but at some point, Bitcoin will spike. Does that make it any more of a good investment? In my brain, it does not. If you feel safe enough to diversify into Bitcoin, that is up to you. It has seen insane returns, and I know no matter what I say, I will always just sound like a bear to some people. But if you are investing based off value and what it could do, ask yourself, what does Bitcoin do? And does the message and creation of Bitcoin still hold validity to how it's turned out today? I think your money would be much better spent in a mutual fund, index fund, bonds, literally anything else. The returns may not be as crazy, but they are steady and they have a proven track record. While it's easy to see line go up and think that we'll never have hard times, seeing red in your account hits a little bit different. And ask yourself, with the history of America and how we've treated other currencies that have tried to leave the dollar in the past, why would we have an incentive to allow Bitcoin and crypto to grow? We have toppled countries and meddled in other people's affairs for less. In my mind, if Bitcoin is still running as strong as it is and is going to gain popularity, that means that the governments have found a way to control whatever they need to make it a viable system outside of fiat, and will only be used to reinforce the idea of tokenization in the future. The creation of the blockchain and the use of Bitcoin has made the idea of tokenization a lot more feasible for the people at the top, and would give them a way out and a new sense of control over your life and your currency. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking in a very pessimistic way, but nothing ever just happens for no reason. There is no such thing as a coincidence. And until somebody can show me the actual value that Bitcoin has, then I will not stop thinking that it is some form of honeypot or government operation to take over means of people's finances. I apologize if that makes you mad, but I gotta say how I feel. I do think the future of money is decentralization, but we need to find a way to do that without letting these big players just take advantage of it. I understand that their adoption means that it's more of a valid form of currency and will get the masses to jump on board, but it also just lets them consolidate power. And that's the problem with the current system at hand. No matter what you try to do, they always have some loophole to consolidate power because they control the fiat money supply, and we need the fiat money to buy our everyday household item. Until we can crack the code to somehow keep the playing field leveled or keep it actually decentralized, we will always be at the mercy of the people who own the most. But again, I'm very pessimistic when it comes to investing. Invest in the index stock. If you're trying to get money, just invest in something safe. If you're trying to gamble, then gamble. Just say you're gambling, but don't try to pass it off as this is 100% foolproof. Those are usually the words said before everything comes crashing down. But again, what do I know? Just an unemployed guy playing Call of Duty, sharing my opinion. If you agree or disagree, let me know down below in the comments. I do read the comments. Are you confident in Bitcoin recovering? Are you confident in Bitcoin as a new form of currency? And do you think the people can regain control from all the banks that have tried to take it over? Or are you as bearish as me? If you haven't already, like and subscribe to join the thread. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
I don't wanna ever lose you. You know that I got some loose screws. I don't got nobody to lose to, but still they watching me.